We're doing what is up? Blake Rodriguez, Dream Come True Canine. We'll see who joins at this time. What time is it right now? 1:56. Dog Fit Dallas. What's up, Art and Baxter? See people. Kathy, Create the Memory. A lot of people joining in. I'll show you what we got going on. New York City. We got Andrew here with some of the pack. What's up, Carlo? How are you? We got Echo here, board and train. Well, let's cover the pack that Andrew has there. We have Leo, Jed, Darcy, Phoebe. We got Echo, Soli, Jerry, Soko, and Dizzy. That's what we got going on. Yes. Hey, Kathy, how are you? And we're gonna jump right into Create the Memory. I see you guys. It's good to see some familiar faces. Let's keep the hearts flowing and let's jump right into some questions. I see Karen Gilbert. How are you? Let's see what I got going on here. Fish. Awesome. We got in. Oh, very nice. I love hearing that. That's awesome stuff. JBZ sharing it on Twitter already. I like that. Got some grass, some field, water over here. The pack, you guys have questions. We hopefully have answers for you. Let's see. What do we have for questions? The key to getting them to walk behind. I think there's a couple things that are really important that people kind of miss. People are aware that we tend to use tools, we tend to use shorter leashes, but not because we're keeping tension on the leads. You'll see, like I'll kind of show you my hand here. There's really it's just kind of happening. A little bit of pressure kind of that I create there, but it's just, the walk pretty much just happens. I think what people fail to realize a lot is that, let me adjust my guy real quick. What people fail to realize is that when you're using, let's say like a prong collar or like a lead or something, you have to teach that language and have a dog understand it away from the problem. So by the time you jump into the problem, it's pretty easy. So when you're using it in a more complex dialogue, I guess, or conversation, the dog is not confused. So that's number one. That's really important. Number two is making sure that you're not just yanking and jerking and popping on this leash, because the leash is supposed to be an extension of your arm or your body, right? So you don't need to keep your arm necessarily behind you. It might start that way, but then it becomes more of a relax where your arm kind of would be. A lot of times people are trying to do one thing with their arm or the leash, and they don't realize that their body is doing the exact opposite, and that makes it really, really confusing for the dog to kind of have to choose. Well, I appreciate that, Rough Star. I really do. Thank you for joining, and of course you guys are hearting. I would hope that everybody that's on here is hearting away. What's really important, super, super important, and we'll get Andrew's take on this in a second. You have to make sure that your body is matching what the leash is saying, or your arm rather, and your leash is matching what your body is saying. So you have to make sure that you have clear body language, and there are a lot of different ways to work on that. The way you're working your dogs for food, the way you're really trying to work on spatial pressure and stuff like that, being aware of movement and how to get the leash to kind of match that, so that you're not stagnant while the leash is kind of moving. That can come later on, but in the early stages you want body language to really, really help, to be a nice contributing factor to get the dog to understand what it is that you want. Because the goal is to not have to really speak loudly through the leash. The goal is to speak relatively like soft, and they're so dialed in with you. Here's the thing, you can't practice getting a dog dialed in with you. Hello. Dialed in with you only when you need it. Your dogs have to practice being dialed in with you in regular everyday situations where it doesn't really matter also, where we kind of let the dog do their thing. That's our time to have them do something that they might not normally do, so they're like, oh, I gotta really focus on this guy. So constant communication is key. You have anything to add? The question was how do you get dogs to walk kind of with you or behind you?
with you behind you following. The key, the whole point of using any communication, any prong collars or anything like that, is to keep the dog sort of connected with you. Most people try to do it, and the dog's always disconnected with them. Well, it's not really walking with them. They're sort of in their own world, and they use it to just sort of prevent stuff from happening. Whereas we use the tools to really create clear communication. Any crank yanking that I do is to disrupt the dog's state of mind and to immediately go back to being soft on the leash and showing them what I want them to do. Most people just go real hard to get the behavior to stop, and the dog's sort of clueless in what you want them to do.
That's a good point. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys heard that last part right there. Most people are using what they think are corrections, but we have to understand what a correction actually is. It's fixing something that's not right. So if you're using, there's different ways to correct, right? A correction could be anything. But usually when we're thinking of a correction, we're thinking of some sort of positive punishment, which is adding something, that's the positive, to basically reduce the likelihood that behavior or that action will kind of happen again. So we have to understand, is what we're doing something that's going to reduce the likelihood? What's really, really important if you're trying to correct something is what you're doing stopping the dog from doing something and then showing them what to do, kind of in the same motion. So a correction by itself, if you're just going to say don't do that, does the dog know what they should be doing? If they don't, it should basically be don't do that, do this. You know what I mean? So that's really, really important. You have to make sure that your body is speaking clear so that your motion and your movements can basically say, not that, focus on what we're doing. We're meaning the pack, even if it's just you. We're not doing that, we're doing this. And that's the key in a nutshell, right?
Yep, and if you condition that really well, using markers like, if you condition that really well, when you use tools, when you do give a correction, a really harsh one, the dog doesn't really shut down. The dog looks to you. They stop, and they get disrupted, and then they look to you. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? And if you're really good at that, that's what you naturally get. And then you can be soft again. I just want you over here and give extra information.
Yeah, another thing, too, I don't know if you see, like, throughout this area, there's not only a lot of people will go this way, not only a lot of people, but there's squirrels and birds and stuff everywhere, right? So a lot of people, hello, how are you? A lot of people are always asking, well, what were to happen if like a squirrel ran by? Squirrels are constantly running by while we're doing this entire scope. I have, how many dogs do I have? 5?
1, 2, 3, Web.
5, Andrew has 4, and they're pretty much in one hand at the moment. Well, I appreciate that, Miss Lacey. Hey, Belize. So, Belize Dog Trainer, you work with Heather? Are you in Belize, or are you in, where's she from? Utah, right? I think she's in Utah. Utah. I don't know how to... Utah. Is spatial pressure an issue? Oh, awesome. Well, what's your name, Belize? Is spatial pressure an issue when walking with the pack? No, but a lot of times your body that a dog's used to reading in a sterile environment isn't as aware, right? So what you need to do, how can one invite me to a shelter? Send an email to info@dctk9.com. So that's the letter K, number 9. The company name is Dream Come True Canine. It's just info and the initials @dctk9.com. D is in dog, C is in cat, T is in training, K is in Kevin or Kevlar, and the number 9.com. Right? Awesome, Kathy. Well, thank you for following. I see you kind of joining in here every now and then, and I appreciate that. Spatial pressure is not an issue. The only thing is you have to make yourself more, or make the dog more aware of you in ways that you might not have had to in a sterile environment. So that means being aware of what can do that. Sometimes sounds, sometimes physical touch, sometimes body parts that can be used the same way that, come on, buddy. Body parts that can be used the same way as if it was your hands, if it was my elbow, if that's what's there, if my leg is what's there, if my knee is what's there, if my shin is what's there, my foot, as long as they're using it the right way, right? That's really, really important. So is there a price to invite you?
I don't know what the question was, but
is spatial pressure an issue when walking a pack, basically? Like, I guess using it. Thanks, guys.
You said dog owners don't know leash pressure away from the body. if you try to leash pressure a dog away from you, they sort of freeze up, and that sort of needs to be taught.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, most dogs don't know leash pressure away from your body, which is a challenge that you slowly start working toward. But it's something that before we start working on it, we have to be aware of it ourselves, right? That's really important. Give you guys a little drive-by of the dogs that we have for some people that are maybe just joining. These guys are here. Those guys right over there. How many dogs do I have? I have 5 right now. 5 dogs right now, yep. Out of the 5, 3 of them are board and trained dogs. And submission peeing in crate so the submissive peeing is happening in the crate or kennel. Work the dog in the crate or kennel a little bit more with less excitement, but more regularity. So working the dog for their food, going in and out of the crate. So it's not such a, okay, now she's coming to me and we're gonna go out of the crate. What's kind of the issue? You don't want to be negotiating like it's okay and kind of really getting it, but really like 5 minutes a day. I got a pooper. Andrew, pay attention. Where it's just twice a day, you're the one that comes, gets the dog out, and it becomes a regular thing. If you got to get the dog on a slip lead or like a leash or something like that, it's like, what does the dog have to do in order to get the slip lead on? And once the slip lead's on, what does that represent? How are you? What's the fun stuff that comes after that? We go for a walk, we do this, we do that. So you want to become more of a regular, come on, you got it? Thanks. A regular kind of person or experience for the dog, where the dog goes, I understand this. Is leash reactive actually a thing? I hear that said so much at my job, but I feel it's more the handler. It's kind of a good question. Leash reactivity is definitely a thing. A lot of it is always, the handler, but that's not to say that can't happen with me. We get dogs that try to act leash aggressive with us, and then we teach them what is important, and they get to a point where they realize, oh, I don't do that with you. So it always boils down to clear communication. There's some things that the dog has to learn, and there's things that the handler has to learn as well, right? I'm gonna swoop around, and I'm just gonna kind of follow you real quick. Right? So come around this way, and you can lead the way. So that's a good question. What else do we have for question, guys? Keep the hearts flowing, guys. Come on, keep the hearts flowing. We're in New York City. Show these guys. What do we have for questions? Oh, you guys are stingy with the hearts today. Small dog, how would you teach down? There's a couple different ways. Sometimes smaller dogs can be a little bit trickier. I like to use a mix between having a dog that's already used to being lured for food, and working for their food, and knows the leash pressure pretty well. With smaller dogs, it's a little bit tough because you basically have to hold on to the clasp of a leash when you're using leash pressure, but you don't want to do it in a forceful way. Usually after 3 to 5 times of the dog getting it, and then yes, with a terminal command that they have to come and get their food, not be given their food in the down. After the 3rd or 5th time, dogs start really, really getting it. Sometimes you can use your leg sort of as a tunnel or a bridge for the dog to kind of go under with your hand on the other side. But once your dog knows being lured for food and knows leash pressure, it's easy as long as you're patient and you don't get frustrated, right? Let's see what we have. Oh, great question. Usually when you have dogs on meds for anxiety, as much as I would love to cold turkey them, usually veterinary behaviorists is what they're labeled as, have them on ridiculous amounts and doses, and studies show that they should not be cold turkeyed. So as much as I would like to, there is a weaning process. So what I do is I usually have my clients that are about to start a program, I make them aware of that, and I say, listen, why don't you start the weaning process prior to the board and train program so we can really get your money's worth out of the program, because during that process, you kind of have the dog in and out of being aware. And, when someone's paying a lot of money and your time is kind of waiting for the dog to kind of come around, you really want to be fair to the client so they can get the most bang for their buck. Sometimes clients can do that and they need more help, and they go, listen, we got to start the weaning process with you, or they start it and then they kind of come on in. If I ever get a shorty, please demonstrate the mechanics of it. Well, we have a bunch of little dogs. I guess at this point, even our puppy. What you should do is you should follow our Facebook page and our catch.me, because we're usually showing that stuff. I might have not, I guess, shown an actual down, but at this point our dogs kind of know it, so it's a little bit, I'd be showing it to you and then the dog would be doing it. I'd rather kind of show it to you with a dog that kind of doesn't know it yet, so I promise to do that. We'll do a periscope when we get another little guy. We just finished teaching it with this. So I'm going to show you a little something real quick with a dog that's reactive. Ask that question again in a second, Lacey. I'll show you this. We got these guys here. You see the hesitation? This is where the dog needs more help. The leaning shouldn't happen. We're also going to be fair, because that right there is not something that I'm in control of with that dog. So I help my dogs by going wide. They're all doing fine. But it's just when you have that type of... When you have that type of silent language with the dog leaning, like, why would I even get close to that dog? You know, like, the person's arm is extended, that leash should get lost. I'm not gonna jeopardize my pack kind of trusting me because that dog is just there waiting to kind of explode. All right. Sometimes we'll use good. We definitely good and nope. I tend to not actually use the word nope, aside from like training, which some people will say that's kind of silly. But I tend to use more of a hey or a kind of sound. It's the same thing as yes, because I teach it the same way. So it's really, it's a conditioned response. But you're not using terminal markers usually on a walk. I mean, I don't really see the need for it for what we do. So sometimes if I'm correcting a dog and they fall into like a good rhythm, good, that's what I want. The dog's like, oh, this is what you want. So it can help to kind of bring clarity there. Yeah, but I mean, usually if anything, it would be good and nope. So we got this kind of reactive guy here. These guys being pros, of course. You know, we don't... This guy's right here, kind of hanging. The rat pack. Alright guys, I'm going to let you go. I got to focus more on these guys a little bit more. We're getting back to the end. Just wanted to do a little Q&A for you guys. I will see you guys on the next scope. Later.